Hey, it's Amy Walker with the CEO Spot, and if you are an entrepreneur couple who is looking for tips for how to work together without killing each other, then this is going to be a great video for you. We are talking about entrepreneurship, marriage, and how to work with your spouse. So Stephen and I have been working together for coming up on, we're entering our 7th year. No, wait, that's not true. We're in our 7th year of business. He started working with me a year and a half into it. So we're 5.5 years into working together. Gotta get the numbers right. So we've been working together for a while, and I'm gonna tell you, we worked together once. We tried to go into business together once, like probably 10 years before that. It was a hot mess. Neither of us were real happy. In the end, he went and got a job, and we were both super relieved the day that he went to work for the first time for somebody other than us. And then when we came back together to do business together the second time, it's been beautiful. We absolutely love it. So I am going to give you some of our best tips and share with you a little bit of the behind the scenes of what we did to make working together really work for us, because we've done it well and we've done it wrong, and I want you, if you're gonna work with your spouse, I want you to do it well. So the first tip that I have for you is to get really clear on roles and responsibilities. The first time Stephen and I worked together, we didn't have that clarity. So what we had kind of thought was, I was doing this business and it was going all right, and if we brought Stephen in, then we'd have 2 people to do the business together and we'd be able to produce twice as much as with one. Didn't happen that way. In fact, our numbers didn't really increase much at all. And the reason, one of the big reasons, was we did not have differentiated roles and responsibilities. So I had been doing the business as a solopreneur, and I brought him in and thought, if he just does more of what I do, that's gonna help, that's gonna make all the difference. Well, we have really different skill sets. So him being the backup me, which is what it came down to, like it was the backup me, did not work well. He's not a salesperson. He is not, in fact, you know, this video would make a lot of sense for us to do it together. He doesn't like being on video, so I don't make him be on video. I have boys like that too. I have some boys who love being on the camera and some who would rather not be. So if you look at my Instagram feed, you might only think I have 2 or 3 children. I have 5, I just have a couple who don't like being in the front and center. It's totally fine. So me putting him in a role that didn't play to his strengths, and then me getting frustrated because we're not making more money, it all comes down to roles and responsibilities. So the second go around, before we brought him in, we had meetings. We had recruiting meetings. I remember sitting over lunch and having discussions about what would it look like for you to come into the business and work with me, and what types of jobs would you want to have. And we sat down and we laid out a list of all of the different roles and responsibilities that we would ultimately like to see in the company, and started carving out which ones he was suited for, which ones he would excel at, and which ones the company really needed, because he did not want to have a job that was just thrown to him or made up for him. He wanted to do something that was really meaningful and valuable inside of the company. So we defined the roles. Now this is going to be a step into some of the other tips I'm going to give you, but that's the very first thing, is define the role and what are the responsibilities that go along with it. Because in a small business, nobody gets a free ride, right? I have kids who are like, I want to work in your company, Mom. I'm like, that's great, but just so you know, you have to be able to produce for the company, because we're a small business. And so when you're a small business, everybody has to play a part, so nobody just gets a space. And that's one of the things that I see as a trouble when you have a spouse who wants to come into the business, or be there maybe part-time, they don't have clearly defined roles and responsibilities. So I was speaking with a doctor recently, and I was speaking with the doctor and his office manager, and the doctor was telling me about how his wife loves to contribute in the business. And the office manager came up to me afterwards and was like, she is a nightmare. She just comes in and tells everybody everything that they're not doing right, but she doesn't actually help with any of it. It makes everybody mad and angry, and then I'm cleaning up the mess because of it. And I said, well, what's her role in the company? She's like, she doesn't even have a role. She's just the business owner's wife who gets bored being at home. And so she comes in and she messes everything up. That is a problem. The other thing that I've seen recently is a couple that was doing business together, and the wife did have a role inside of the company on paper, but in reality, the spouse was not keeping up with her responsibilities. So then she has other team members that are having to pick up the slack because she's not being held accountable to keeping up with her responsibilities. That's going to be a problem. So that's just step number one. We have to have roles and responsibilities clearly defined. And if the spouse does not want to adhere to those roles and responsibilities, let them work for somebody else. Let them do their own thing. We don't have to do business together in order to support each other as entrepreneurs. But if we are going to do business together, we got to honor our roles and responsibilities. Okay, tip number 2 is you have to have a hierarchy. So if you think of a hierarchy, this is what allows us to be able to say who gets to have the final say in a different area. And it's critical. So my husband has hierarchy over his departments that he's responsible for, and he is responsible for 2, so marketing and also finance. Those are his 2 areas that he has the say over. So he has the hierarchy, and if I say I want to hire this person and he says no, I don't feel like that's the right person for the job, he gets the final say. And that was hard for me, but we had to create that hierarchy. Now, if there's something that has to do with marketing and it affects another department, like maybe there's a marketing decision but it's going to affect sales, then I have the final say because I am the CEO of the whole company and I'm the owner of the company. So within his department, if it's just specifically for his department, he gets the final say. If it affects another department, then I have the final say. So that's our second tip, is make sure that you have a hierarchy in place and you talk about it beforehand. Because if you get into business and you start having butting heads, because you will not be on the same page on every single decision. Your spouse will think one thing is right, you'll think one thing is right. And if you're consistently having arguments trying to fight over who wins, then that creates a lot of contention. It's going to ruin the vibe in your relationship. So make sure that you have a clearly defined hierarchy beforehand. Trust me, the first few times my husband said no to something, like, but I want to do that for marketing. Sorry, it's not in your marketing budget, so the answer is no. I was like, what? I didn't love it, but we had pre-agreed upon it, so I just had to go and process my frustration on my own and accept that this is the decision. This is what the head of marketing has told me, and it is also what the head of finance has told me. And if I was in any other company and I had a head of marketing, a head of finance, and they told me no, because that doesn't fit within your marketing budget, I would listen. And so because that hierarchy is in place, I did listen. And just like I would have done in another company, I went and had my little tantrum for a moment, and then I came back, was ready to go. All right, let's go into tip number 3. Tip number 3 is autonomy. So in a married couples world, you have a lot of things where you are one, you are a unit, you are together. And then you have areas where you have autonomy, which is you get to do your own thing. And you don't have somebody like breathing down your neck and hovering around and playing too close of quarters. So we have to give each other space. We have to give each other autonomy in order to be able to work together. So for example, I don't call, I run a virtual team. So my virtual people, I don't check in with them 5 times a day to say, what are you doing? What are you doing? What's going on? What's going on? So I do the same amount of check-ins with my spouse as I would with anybody else on my team. We don't get up in each other's business. A lot of times we've both worked for the entire day, me in my office, he in his office, and at the end of the day, it's like, so what'd you do today? Because we check in once a week in our owners meeting, once a week in our team meeting, and then we communicate as needed by email, but we are not up in each other's space all the time. We give each other space to create. He has autonomy to make decisions, to prioritize his time. I'm not micromanaging him. He's not micromanaging me. We give each other space. So that's pretty critical if you want to actually be happy working together. Tip number 4, I just actually dropped that seed right there. It's have owners meetings. So owners meetings are a time when we get together and we talk about the company from the perspective of owners. So I'm a 51% owner, he is a 49% owner, and we need to be able to have conversations about things in the context of being business owners that doesn't involve all of our team. So we get together about once a week. Sometimes we miss a week if I'm traveling, or we have a orthodontist appointment or dentist with the kids or something, but about once a week we get together and we go through what's going on with the company. What are the needs? Where are we at? Are we hitting our goals? Are we not? Just kind of some of those behind closed doors conversations that we need to have. I have been in meetings with other couples that work together where they start to bicker with each other in front of the team. And it's like, we can't do that. We just can't do that. And what happened is they were not on the same page. And so they're just talking about it for the first time in front of the team. So the team is seeing them start to work out their friction. The team should not see that. That should have happened in the owners meeting. And then when you go in with the team, you present a united front so that you are on the same page. The other thing the owners meeting will do for you is it will keep your dates from turning into a business meeting. Those of you who work with your spouse, you know exactly what I'm talking about. You're out to lunch, and instead of it being romantic, you're like, hey, did you send this report? Did you do this? Did you do, and it turns into you talk about business the whole time. And then you shift onto the business of the kids the whole time. And you don't really have a chance to be you as a couple. So that also pillow talk turns into business talk if you're not having that owners meeting. So if you'll just simply have the owners meeting, it keeps your business relationship thriving, but it also keeps your romantic relationship thriving because you're not talking about business when you should be just loving each other. So that's my 4th tip for you. Okay, my last tip is always put your marriage and your family first. I'll be totally transparent. I've said no to a lot of things that I would have liked to have said yes to for me personally, but they were not what was in the best interest of my family or my marriage. And so we together made that decision that we were going to say no. And I don't feel bad about those things. I don't look back and say, well, what if, or what if I had? We know that the ultimate goal and the number one thing that we will protect is our marriage and our family. That's what we want in the end. It's the most important thing. And so we make every decision about business around what's going to support this core being strong. And if it's not in alignment, we don't go down that path. We also are protective of each other, sometimes to a fault. So my husband will start, and we have to be careful about this, okay? This is something we have to be careful about. We'll start making decisions because we're trying to take stuff off of the other person's plate. And so we'll start putting the brakes on certain areas when we see one of us is getting overwhelmed. That's a negative implementation of a really positive principle. The principle is we're putting marriage first, we're putting family first. But the implementation of how that should actually look, and I want to point this out because I don't want you guys to get confused and think that making a bad business decision is putting my marriage first. It's not. What actually works better is when we come together and we discuss these things and we say, I can see that you are getting a lot on your plate right now. You seem a little bit overwhelmed. Are you sure that we still want to do X, Y, and Z in the business? And then we can together look at all of our options and we can make a good decision instead of doing things like, I'm just not going to tell him that there's a financial problem going on because I don't want him to be stressed, or I'm just not going to ask her to come in and have that mediation conversation with our team members who is upset because I don't want her to know that they're upset with her. So I'm just going to take that on. We don't want to do that. We do want to always put our marriage and family first, but that doesn't mean that we shield the other person from any hard things going on in business. It means we're totally transparent with any hard things going on in business and in life, and together we make the best decisions for what's going to be right for our company. And we have to put ego aside. Sometimes what's best for the company is for one spouse to not be in the business. Sometimes what's better for the company is for one spouse to maybe not be as prominent and visible as the other spouse. Maybe what's best is for us to be able to do things exactly together. Maybe it's best for us to manage our own areas and let the other one do their thing. It's going to look different in every situation, but if you will follow these 5 principles, I guarantee you're going to be a lot more happy and satisfied working with your spouse. And that's really what matters. I mean, we don't want to go into business with our spouse just for it to be awful, right? We want it to be a win. So I hope these tips are great for you. I would love to hear what you thought. Make sure that you like the video, leave us a comment, share it with any other entrepreneurial couples you know that could benefit. And if you haven't done it yet, join our private Facebook. And if you haven't done it yet, join our private Facebook community. Also, I'd love to be a resource for you in growing your business. So if you need any help, please reach out. I am available and would love to support you in your growth journey. And we do have a couple freebies if you want to read in the description of this video. We've got some time management tools and also some marketing tools for you. So thanks everyone. Have a great day.